Dr. King. So I'm very excited. This is just a lights out all-star panel. For our final panelist, we're going to close out and then have our Q&A section. Whew. I don't know if you folks are ready for this, but we have Erika Uyterhoevan, who is the state representative-elect coming out of Somerville. She's the co-founder of Act on Mass, a campaign that fights to increase transparency in the Massachusetts State House, which is an impenetrable fortress, seemingly, for progressive legislation, where great ideas and fights go to die. So we need certainly better candidates, better elected officials representing us. She's a fellow Bernie alum on the campaign, very proud of where she's come, and a fellow DSA member. She's going to be one of the strongest activist voices organizing on our behalf for our people's agenda on Beacon Hill. Thank you so much for being here with us, Erika. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It really is an honor to share this space with you all. And I just want to start, by reflecting on the time and space we're occupying right now. We've got 250,000 people who are no longer with us because of COVID. Almost 1% of the US population is infectious. And we're all living through these spaces like Zoom and isolation, yearning for connection with each other. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that where our people are, most of whom just couldn't even be in the space with us right now, and give thanks, give grace to those who are fighting on our behalf right now, our essential workers. They keep fighting. Even every day we think to ourselves, it can't possibly get worse than it is now, and it just does. And yet they keep fighting. And this is just truly an unprecedented time of reckoning. We are living in this, I'll be joining the Massachusetts General Court as a state representative, which is an institution with this massive gap, this harsh disconnect between the reality of working people's lives and the intentional action of those holding power over our needs, those in power right now. Those are the people who currently occupy our state house. And we're seeing here in Massachusetts, daily new cases are surging past the high we had in April. Healthcare workers are bracing for the next peak as we speak right now. And essential workers who are disproportionately people of color are working in these unsafe, unnecessary conditions where they risk preventable infection, and they don't even get the bare minimum, emergency paid sick time. That was our big fight 2 weeks ago in the State House. And in that public health context, we've got hundreds of thousands of families who are facing eviction since October. 1 million out of 7 million people in Massachusetts don't have enough food to eat. And our state house's response is, go back to school, right? Put your life on the line. Lift that moratorium and just go back to normal. We're not even willing to pony up any funding and any real support because we just don't have a choice. And with that response, never has it been so clear how little our lives matter in comparison to our societal obsession, our underlying allegiance to markets and to wealth accumulation of very few people. And for me, this nightmare, it's a choice, right? We have enough food and housing for everyone. We have funding to keep people at home and keep people safe while doing essential work. We have the resources for everyone to thrive. And our state house and our governments are just choosing not to give it to everyone. And so we have a whole mindset to change, right? This rugged individualism, deficit thinking, that it's our own fault that we are suffering right now. And our entire social, political, and economic system is designed so that people don't thrive, except for the select few, because they can thrive, they get to make decisions on behalf of the rest of us, right? And our state house, I've seen, as an advocate and now as a state rep and elect, our state house just opens that door to them while shutting the rest of us out. That's why I founded Act on Mass. It's not just about transparency for transparency's sake. It's because everyone in this room on this Zoom and your neighbors and your friends all belong in that state house. They belong there just as much as anyone else to define and have their voices heard of the policies that actually work for us. And instead, through it all, we're just enamored with this capitalist society, with white supremacy. People believe this lie that somehow they look at billionaires and plutocrats, like that's going to be me next. So I got to protect these people because that's going to be me. That's how we end up with Trump, with Betsy DeVos, with Mark Zuckerberg, running our schools, steps to privatize the tea. It's how 550 billionaires, that is 540 people who we could fit in this Zoom right now, not that we ever want to, but their wealth has jumped to nearly $1 trillion more since mid-March, while 62 million people plus have lost their jobs and their livelihoods. They've lost their homes. Their lives have turned upside down. And we here in this richest state, Massachusetts, the highest GDP per capita, we couldn't dare to lay one finger on raising revenue from the profiteers of the pandemic, not even one finger to raise extra revenue. And to me, that's the abject failure that we're dealing with right now in the State House. And we're told even by our progressive allies, right, to accept the lie that this is the best we could do. That right there is deficit thinking. And we're not here to accept deficit thinking. And somehow, right, these supposed people in power are telling us this is a win. This budget's a win, even though we didn't raise a single finger. We're winning right now. And that's that gaping disconnect between the State House and people in power and the reality that working people are facing right now. And I'm deeply familiar with this because I'm a product of a generation that watched during my formative years, the adults in power, the grown-ups in the room, fail us. I grew up in the 90s when we had time to stop the climate crisis. And instead, the adults drove around in SUVs, got drunk off of a booming economy, driven by busting unions and carving out the American worker, dismantled our public goods, our schools, our healthcare, transportation, and then slammed down on locked up Black and brown people, girls and boys, with get tough rhetoric and war on drugs, exploding the militarization of police in the US and American imperialism and militarism abroad. And my generation and generations coming after me have been let down by the adults in the room. They've left us with this uncertain future. And I and many others in the movement come to politics and organizing not because it was an appealing career path full of niceties, but as children of this movement. We came because it was the only way to reclaim our voice and reclaim public leadership, to walk in the same step as working people rather than alienating, and I'll say it, inflicting violence on working people. Whether that's the literal violence of the carceral state or housing violence through evictions, violence against families by forcing workers to choose between putting their lives on the line or putting food on the table. And I want to share with you all, with the time we have, just two very important choices in my life that brought me to where I am. First was my choice to join the Bernie campaign. I was brought up, growing up, my mom was an immigrant, and she told me, I want you to get that job in a shiny office building. I want you to have that office job, that white collar job. I want you to thrive. That was her definition of thriving for me, was get that education, go to school, and get that fancy office job. And I got there. I was an antitrust economist. I did everything that my mom really, really, really wanted me to do. She told me this was what she never had the opportunity to. And we bought into that American dream, this neoliberal dream, right? And it became clear to me through the decade of protests, which is ending this month, the decade of protests with Occupy, Black Lives Matter, with Me Too, that these systems were designed intentionally to keep people down. This wasn't a mistake. This isn't just some law of nature. And Bernie's campaign completely changed that for me. There was a voice out there. I realized, wow, I'm not alone. There's other people out there that believe in it. And so when I joined the campaign, I completely changed how I thought about the world and how I exist in it. Because up until the campaign, I believed that like things just happen to me, right? I'm gonna do the best I can to do the best economic models, the best spreadsheets in front of my computer, and I'll build resources for my family, and that's how I'm gonna survive in this world. And the campaign changed it for me because I went from being someone who says things happen to me to I have a responsibility to change all of this. Because when I worked on the Bernie campaign, I was told from day one, there's no way he's going to even make it past New Hampshire. You're not going to get anything done. We were told no, 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 no every time. And my first state, I worked in New Hampshire. We brought the largest margin of victory in New Hampshire history in over 50 years through organizing. And it became clear to me that we have a responsibility. We as people have a responsibility to organize, to bring our people together and shape the future that we believe in. So that was that first choice of recognizing that I have a responsibility. And the second choice to commit to politics and organizing was actually a personal moment of reclaiming my voice. So I'll just share with you all, I grew up in a broken family like so many women of color who do essential work. My mom raised me entirely on her own. And the moment I solidified this choice was the day of my father's funeral. It was a beautiful event celebrating his life with gorgeous decadent flowers on display, very kind people. And yet I was there, and no one except for a handful of immediate family members knew who I was at my own father's funeral. It crystallized for me how I grew up feeling voiceless, without a name, without an existence, in the eyes of my own blood relatives. I knew my whole life I was cut out of the picture. But in that moment, it crystallized a feeling I felt my whole childhood, voiceless. Someone who wasn't supposed to belong, a perpetual imposter in all the white spaces I was expected to assimilate to. And that is the same feeling of our generation when the adults in the room don't take our future and our humanity seriously. And in that moment, I made a choice. I don't have to be voiceless. I am not going to be someone who accepts things happening to me anymore, but be someone who will take responsibility for what this world looks like and actually take action towards it, to fight for that future, fight for a future of abolition and socialism, political and economic system that is not centered on exploitation of workers and the super exploitation of Black and brown people, but instead for principled struggle, centered on everyone's self-determination to be their full selves and have the agency to shape our collective future and our government. That was the clarifying choice I made then. And that's why I ran for office, because I'm not taking this anymore. We won't take it anymore. I won't accept this violence. Massachusetts is my home. The people of Massachusetts are my people. I was born and raised here in Massachusetts, where someone like my mother, who came to Brookline to work as a housemaid in the 60s, she lived in a Massachusetts where she made it. And it was a hard road, but she made it. And that's a Massachusetts I believe in for everyone. The Massachusetts where even a daughter of an immigrant from a broken family can rise to represent, to serve as a mirror to the movement that made me who I am. Someone like me can rise up and take the power. We need to make that an opportunity for everyone, and it's not right now. What it means to me to be a movement candidate or co-conspirator in the State House is to stand up to the adults in the room, reclaim our voice, bring our movement into the halls of power with me. For us to realize our full selves, we must bring many, many, many more people with us. Many more of us must reclaim our voice and our government for the many, not the few. And this is why I'm so honored to share the space with you all, because everyone here is here to make a choice, to organize, to build, to nurture this movement that is abolitionist. We don't compromise with racism. We are a movement that understands white supremacy and its twin conjoined sibling, capitalism, is hurting us all and putting on precarity our basic human needs of food, housing, healthcare, education, and even a livable climate. And we understand that we cannot remain neutral through this. We cannot allow, by remaining neutral, we are allowing racist, sexist, homophobic, classist status quo to ravage our community. And that's the reckoning we're having right now. And so I'm so excited to join you all to fight for the abolitionist future we believe in, the anti-capitalist future that we believe in, because that's what we need for all of us, not just the very few, but for all of us to thrive in the world that we believe in. Thank you.